Welcome to the Damned If You Do podcast, where two cousins share our experiences growing up as children of immigrants
and how we navigate the world today as teachers, mothers, and women of color who have something to say.
I think we've talked a lot about what it means not to be present.
And why it's so difficult to be present.
Exactly. And so let's move then on to what does it mean to be present?
Yes. And, I know this is very saturated in our culture. What does it mean to be present? And I actually wanted to look it up for a more succinct definition, because a lot comes up for me too. But so I found from the Manhattan Mental Health Counseling, they describe being present as being fully conscious of the moment and free from the noise of internal dialogue. It's often associated with feelings of stillness and peace. And I think the part that really stood out to me is, we all know it's attending to the moment, right? Mm-hmm. But what I didn't really think about was the absence of what should occur, which is the absence from the noise of your own internal dialogue.
Which as we talked about, the internal dialogue stems from all the problems that you have with your past and all the problems that you have with your future.
Your perceived future.
Exactly. So then if you're not worrying about the past or the future in that internal dialogue, then you're in the present, right?
Right.
So it makes sense with what we're thinking it's not, because this is what it is.
Right. So how do you turn it off? The clutter, the noise, the endless planning. I can't tell you the number of times I've been somewhere and I'm like hanging out with people. I'm at a play date, or even when I'm hanging out with friends, I'm mapping the thing that I have to go to later that day or tomorrow while I have my to-do list open. And I have 2 daily to-do lists, which is disgusting, I know. But that's real. And it's hard for me to, unless like someone snaps me out of that moment or talks to me, or I hear like my kids screaming or whatever, which is very, very often, that disrupts me from what I'm doing. But then I catch myself and I'm like, I need to get off my phone. I need to stop planning.
So
and at least
choices to do it.
Yes.
It's like an out loud, deliberate choice. I need to blank.
Yes. And, these days I have more parameters around what I allow myself to engage in, meaning like I don't let myself be on the phone. I'm not usually near my phone unless I have to really specifically be for an urgent reason. I really try to put my phone away when I hang out with people. Even when I'm with my kids. When I take my kids to the playground, I'm not trying to be judgy right now, but I do not want to be the parent who's on my phone the entire time. I do not want to be the person who walks down the street staring at my phone the entire time I'm walking. And that's fine. It's all good if that's you, but that's just for me, because that's a choice I'm making to be
No
present.
One should do this. You should not do this. I'm not judging you. It's because we're high school teachers too.
Yeah.
And we see the saturation of phones in our students' hands.
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting. It's making me like so anti phone.
Yes.
Even though I need my phone for banking and all the other things.
and life.
And life. But it's truly, I think, because of our professions where I'm like, it is not good for you. Yeah. Because you see the, effect that it has.
Right.
It's truly addictive, and so you see it in firsthand every day.
Right. But outside of like phone use, right? Yeah. That's just one aspect. Yeah. That's a huge daily aspect for most folks. But yeah, let's explore more about what does it mean to be present? How do we stay present while being in the moment and hopefully turning off or diminishing the internal dialogue that just clutters your mind? How do you do that when real life is happening? How do you do that when you want to be grateful, hopefully, or you are feeling grateful and there are very other real things happening in your life? How do we hold and make space for terrible things? shitty things that happen, perhaps often, for grief, and for everything in between, the gray areas of you're just exhausted and you have a million things to do and you want to numb out and you want to disassociate and you also have to make a ton of decisions. How do we do it?
So I have some things that I do like daily, right? But I wanted to circle back to something. Our opening comment before the podcast starts. It's my feeling about my trip to Korea.
Yeah.
And we laughed about it so many times since I've said that because it's so true, right? I'm like, I'm so excited. I'm already disappointed.
Yeah.
And it's the feeling of not being able to stay in the present. That was my problem, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't even, I'm anticipating too much. I'm already disappointed in what I'm anticipating. I feel like this trip is too short. And, it's me not living in the present. The wonderful thing is when I got to Korea, there are things that pull you into the present that it's not even like the things I do every day, because I'm on a vacation. It's like not things I do every day, right?
Sure.
But
hopefully,
like one of the things that really pulled me into the present is when I experience through my own children, because they're still so young, they have such a explicit sense of wonder.
Yes.
It's on their face. It's in their voice. It's in their gasps,
Yeah.
And just the joy in their demeanor as we looked at certain things or tried certain things or got certain, we bought certain things. They were so excited, and to not be on my phone at that moment or not be worried about something and just tune into their joy.
Yes.
I was like, I'm going to do it. And every time I saw it, I just tuned in. And it felt so wonderful to do that with them, And I realized I do that even at work on a daily basis. Like, it's not just the joy part. It's if I'm talking to someone, I'm like, I'm going to tune in. And I literally think to myself, I am tuning in. I got that phrase from my husband, who has ADHD. And he's like, he feels like there's 5 radios playing in his brain at the same time.
Yeah. I love that you said radio. Keep going.
Shut up. But it's he's like, when he's focusing, he's like, I'm tuned in, right? Yeah. And I thought, I want to be tuned in too, right? And not just to focus because I have so many things going on, which I do, but I want to tune in to the person that I'm talking to and the smile that they're giving me or the jokes that they're making or whatever it is that we're connecting on. And that helps me stay present as well.
Yeah.
Those are just 2 little things, right? That I end up, I'm going to tune in.
Yeah.
I got catchphrases.
Yeah, you do, girl. So do I. I love your example of your children, and I think a lot of parents would resonate with this, especially if you have little kids. They get jaded as they get older. We all know this.
It's sad.
Yeah, life stamps it out of you, or really tries to.
Yeah.
And public education is certainly no exception to that. Tamping down the joy and wonder and exploration. Thinking outside the box,
right?
Which we try to cultivate in our own instructional practices.
Yeah.
But yeah, even with my kids, I was talking about my kids with my therapist in one of our recent sessions, and he said to me just offhandedly, he was like, I read a couple surveys lately about what age group laughs the most, and he's like, guess, and I'm like, Dave, I have no idea. It's not mine. And then he was like, 4-year-olds. 4-year-olds won the lottery on that. And I have a 4-year-old he recently turned 4. Yeah. And that completely tracks. That kid laughs all the time. And it's so wonderful. I love this age of 3 to 5-year-olds because that's when you still have the very clear, simple, expressions of wonder and joy, but they have the articulation where they can very clearly express it to you. Yeah. And it's really hard to stay in that place, that headspace. Right? And so as an adult, it's just such a wonderful lens to look through because you can choose to have a lens like that. It is not outside the realm of possibility. It just doesn't naturally occur or spontaneously. Right. And I look to my kids when they're being kind and nice, which is not all the time, but when they're in a good headspace, it really helps remind me of some choices that I can make. to also experience my own adult version of that joy and wonder. Also, this reminds me of something else where I was talking with some friends recently, and they were talking about, one of them was talking about just her dating life right now and how it hurts to hope, essentially, that it's, at some point you do feel jaded and it's the fear of disappointment. And when she starts going on dates that feel very fun and promising, she catches herself and she feels reticent to allow herself to get excited or to get too hopeful, right? And that could be said for so many aspects of our lives. I think we've all felt this, right? Where it's like you're just worried about that other shoe dropping.
Yeah.
And I've thought about this a lot in this chapter of my life because my previous chapter was rough. And it was, this is like when my mom was really sick. And in her last few years of life, she passed away 2 years ago at this point. There was a lot to worry about, and there was a lot of heartache, and there was a lot of grief. And now that I have closed that chapter and I'm here, I am so appreciative of understanding that you don't need to worry until you need to worry. And I think having grief and heartache can really help me prioritize and understand and perceive what is real hurt and danger. Yeah. Now, not everyone has those experiences, and I hope you haven't actually, at least not yet in your life, because we all will eventually.
Yeah.
And grief can come in many forms, not just the loss of our loved ones. But I'm just realizing there's a muscle. Your brain is a muscle. Right. It's the sexiest muscle in your body.
Oh God.
But it's the most important muscle, right? And there's so many practices that you have to do daily or flex.
Right.
And one of them is hope. Like I literally exercise my muscle of hope, and I hope against the odds, and I hope because it's the practice itself. And I think before when I felt very hopeful, it came with a lot of labor. Like it was more about, hey, if I just put in the hours and I really pay attention, I work hard, that's what's going to get me there. And these days I'm like, I'm just going to hope for the best. I actually may not do anything toward it. But even that is a good practice because you have to remind yourself that I am not in control. There's a lot of shit outside of my control, and that is okay. And guess what? I can still hope.
Yeah. Do you know that it's to our friends who are listening to us right now, for us, it's 1 a.m. And when you were like, let's hope for the best, I'm like, that's your catchphrase. And then I thought, wait, what was my catchphrase? This is our life.
Yeah, it truly is.
Okay, so these are our 3 main categories of what we're gonna our daily practices, right? Daily practices of trying to stay present. I think one category is grounding. What do we do to ground ourselves? It's such a therapy word these days. I like thinking about the idea of being grounded as in connected to the ground. Right? You're literally not floating away.
In your mind.
Exactly. In the chaos of your mind. You're not just swirling around like a tornado. You're on the ground. And so one thing that I do every morning, I didn't know it was a grounding exercise until my therapist told me that I was doing a grounding exercise. And I'm like, I'm smart. I did it. You didn't tell me to do this, therapist. I did it on my own.
There's that unwarranted confidence.
So what we were talking about internal family systems. We were talking about internal family systems earlier, and one of the things that Dick Schwartz talks about is that if yourself is at the in the driver's seat, right? You're not there's not another part that is trying to protect you, but you are there. Your self with a capital S is in the driver's seat.
Meaning your most authentic self when you actually don't feel like there's stress or danger.
Right.
It's your most optimal self.
And you think, okay, it's myself at peace, but actually it's yourself at the 8 C's.
Right.
And he calls it the 8 letter C's. And I'm going to like read them to you because I never remember them. So what I did was I literally printed out a PDF that some like therapist made about the 8 C's. Mm-hmm. And they are curiosity, compassion, calmness, clarity, courage, confidence, creativity, and connectedness. So those are the 8 C's.
It's a lot of C's.
And when I told Linda that, she's like, that's exactly what she said. That's a lot of C's. And my goal is not to be all of those things with perfection, right? I'm not trying to be perfect. But what I am doing is I'm doing almost like a body scan. It's, like technically body scans are like going through each part of your body to see like if you feel something.
I never understood that.
I'm like, I can't think that way.
Yeah, it's like, all I know is that my stomach hurts and I'm gassy.
Life in your 40s. But it's like, it's almost like doing a 8 C's scan. Mm-hmm. So I have this, I bicycle to work, which is my next daily practice actually, but I bicycle to work so I don't wear my makeup because, I might sweat it off. So then
because you're going 1 mile an hour.
Yes, and I literally only wear BB cream. And since I got my eyebrows tattooed, I don't even do my eyebrows.
Okay. It's a good life.
Okay, it's BB cream and blush. So anyway, I get to work and I put on my BB cream and I used to try to do it fast, but I'm like, no, this is a labor of love for my skin. It's a nice little face massage and I have a mirror.
I love that you're doing this at work. You're massaging your face at work.
I have my own cubicle. I shut the door.
You've earned it. You're worth it.
And then sometimes people are like, Praise, are you here? Because I like get in and I shut the door real quick. Uh-huh. There goes my radiator.
Chicago.
I know.
Gotta love it.
So then I have this makeup, I have my mirror that's hanging on a magnetic hook. And then I'm massaging my face, putting on my makeup, and right next to my mirror is my 8 C's PDF printout on a piece of white paper.
Yes.
And I go through each of the C's nice and slowly. And I don't think, how can I do this today? Nope, that's not the goal. I go through each C going, curiosity. Do I have that today? Yeah, I think so. I literally am like, okay. It's not a no, so it must be a yes. And then I go through my list. I'm like, compassion. All right, yeah, I think that's okay. It's not like I'm sitting there feeling compassionate about someone, but it's not a no again, right?
Yeah.
It's when I hit the no.
Right.
Right? So I am not calm. So I hit calmness and I go, I don't feel calm. In fact, I feel anxious. Right. And then I'm like, now I can dig into it.
Yeah.
Which then makes me realize that I still have curiosity. So I'm not fully off my 8 C's, right? Mm-hmm. I'm still using bits and pieces, but when I hit like that, no, I don't have that today, or I have to lead a meeting with teachers and I don't have confidence today, right? Because I don't feel good about what I'm presenting. Mm-hmm. And so when I hit those moments, that's when I can be like, okay, let me revisit myself, right? Mm-hmm. And see what's happening. And then you're again in the present because where does that feeling come from? Mm-hmm. Where is it technically in my body? Where do I feel it? Mm-hmm. What can I do right now to sort of dig into that further? And it's all these tips and tricks that you do, if you're a person who's involved in therapy, to be curious about yourself and dig into that little piece. So I do that literally every day. Most days I'm like, okay, I don't got big glaring nose. I'm ready to go. And then I just live my life, right? Yeah. I go to my first meeting or whatever I do.
Yeah.
And so I really like doing it because it puts you in a non-reactive space.
Yeah, I like that. And that is a good space to be at work.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And it's sometimes hard to get there.
Okay, this is my 23rd year in education. I swear I spent 22 of those years in a reactive space. And This is the first year I'm like, nope, I am not going to react.
Yes.
It's not, I'm going to be curious about. The second you're curious about yourself, it puts space in between your reaction to something negative.
Yes.
Perceived negative.
Right.
So I really like doing it.
Right.
I told my therapist, and she's like, "I'm so proud of you. What a grounding activity." I'm like, finally, I'm doing something grounding. Because everything she suggests to me, I'm like, no, thank you.
Oh, yes, I have many of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my therapist at one point told me to work on self-compassion and to go to the mirror after our session.
God.
And to look at myself for at least a full minute. And to look at myself, as he said, to gaze upon myself with compassion and love. And I said, no. No, thank you, Dave. That doesn't track with me.
I feel like it's funnier because his name is Dave.
Good old Dave. And then I actually did do it, I think the next day. And I maybe looked at myself for about 10 seconds. And I thought, I don't look great today. So that's not a practice that helped me. That's not to say it's not a good practice. I really like the one you did. And wait, how long does that take you every day? Under a minute?
As long as it takes me to put on my BB cream.
So like...
It's my makeup routine.
So like under a minute?
I almost feel like I do it because I'm bored while I put on makeup. I might as well get better as a human.
Yeah.
Yeah, under a minute. 2 minutes.
At the most, okay.
Exactly.
That's very manageable. Something that I do that I feel... Two things that I do that I find to be grounding. One of them, and I think this one's commonly known, is... just focusing on one thing in your immediate surroundings and feeling the wonder of it. So this is really easy for me because I spend a lot of time outside. That's just one of my happy places. When I find outside nature to be very therapeutic.
You always have.
Yeah, I always have. I'm a total hippie in that way. And then I'll just like focus on something, you know. Today I like stared at this tree for a really long time, and I was madly in love with it. Or like, you know, when I play with my kids, I'll just stare at, you know, my 4-year-old's hand, you know, just for like a moment. It doesn't take long. Or like,
because there's so much detail in it.
There's so much
like
detail.
In the texture and the touch and the color, like in the, right? Like if you just take a second to look at it, there's so much. There's
so much art and beauty in so many things. And I hope that I will continue to find the beauty and wonder in these things. And also, it's an exercise for me to get out of my head. It's an exercise for me to connect. Because I am a speck in our universe. And I really believe that. And I want to be often reminded of how infinite this world is and how small I am, while also acknowledging the importance and meaning of my life and my value, and that I may mean the world to other people, which are my children and perhaps my students, right? And everyone else in my life. And in return, that's what they mean to me. Right. So it's just kind of this balancing act, right? Of noticing myself and understanding my place in the world.
Right.
Just like internal family systems, it's all about regulation and balance. Right? And I want to connect with different parts of it when I can. So that's one thing I do, focusing on the immediate surroundings. The other thing I do, which is a funny thing because I think a lot of kids are taught this. My son was shown this at some point, I think, by a counselor. And I know I'm sure all over social media. But a very simple technique for kids to regulate themselves when they feel just whack, which is often, is finger tracing. You trace your fingers. I literally started doing that about a month ago when I get pissed off and I feel like I'm going to be very reactive. I go to the bathroom and I literally trace my fingers. like a child.
Do you mean like you hold up your hand and with the finger, with the other hand's finger, you go...
I trace my fingers with the other hand.
I'm doing it now. You can't see me.
But I'm witnessing it and you're doing it beautifully.
Thank you.
And it's
never heard of this.
Oh, okay.
I've heard of this where you touch fingers to your thumb.
Okay.
Over and over, but anyway, it's like a meditative act almost, and it puts you into a touching.
Yes.
like space.
And I'm a very tactile person. I'm a tactile learner, kinesthetic learner, and visual. So I like to touch things, connect with things, and even touching my own body can be helpful because there's something meditative and immersive about tracing your own fingers.
When you said that, I imagined a piece of paper.
Oh, no, sorry.
Until you said going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what are you doing there?
Finger tracing, you literally trace your fingers with the other hand.
Okay.
Yep.
That's interesting. Okay. Next category?
Yes.
All right. Our next category is, well, the first one was grounding practices, and the next one is movement.
Mm-hmm. This is a pretty common one. I think a lot of mindfulness.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that like working out, being active is always good for you, and it really helps reduce cortisol in your body.
The problem is I don't like working out.
Right.
Nobody does. I mean, some people do, I guess.
Yeah, we're not them.
So one of the things, you and I have this in common where we both want to commute to work, not by car. Mm-hmm. And so I, for the last 6 years, no, not even 6 years. Sorry, not last year or this year, but prior to that, for 6 straight years, I commuted from the far north side all the way to the southwest side, and it was miserable. So one of the wonderful things I'm so thankful for during this Thanksgiving season is that I switched the school that I work for, and now I work 5 miles away, and I ride my bicycle to work almost every day. If it's not raining or snowing or slick outside, I am on that bicycle. What makes my ride even more amazing is that a third of my ride is through the North Shore Channel Trail.
Ooh, yeah.
And so I get to, during the spring and fall, the Northwestern row team is like going down the channel. There's a hawk that flies around. There's all these runners. There's squirrels. There's bunnies. There's beautiful butterflies and birds and cardinals. And I just love it. I love it. Now, let me amp that up even more. It's not a regular bike. It's a pedal assist bike. So I barely break a sweat, which is not great for exercise necessarily, but it is excellent for movement.
Yeah.
Like, being present in that movement. I'm not like, like pedaling uphill, so, which is great. But for me, I just feel the nature. I feel going to work feels great, and then especially coming home feels great because whatever stress I might have had that day is now shedding off of me as I bike ride home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, commutes are tricky for us because we're both one-car families. So we don't really even have the option.
And we insist on being one-car families.
Yes, exactly. So for me, I used to walk every day. I used to walk home, except when it rained. So even when it snowed really hard, I would often walk. And that, like, walking from my school to home would be anywhere from like 35 to 40 minutes. So it was pretty substantial. And it was a great practice because by the time I crossed the threshold of my home, I love to work outside. Mentally, emotionally.
Exactly.
Not just physically.
Something about that movement.
Yes. It almost delineates different domains, mental domains of my life.
Yeah.
Or cognitively too. It's just like, but there's like a physicality to it that just helps. Right?
It keeps you present, right? So, like, all the things that you should worry about at work, being anxiety, right? Like, you don't have to anymore because you're now in the present as you're moving.
Right.
I really appreciate that movement.
Yeah. These days, I ride an electric high voice scooter, the kind you stand on. I'm that person who's recklessly sipping down the road, maybe wearing a helmet, maybe not.
Oh, God.
And I always wear a helmet when I drop off my son in the morning. This is literally how I get him to school. We jump on my scooter. The principal is the cross guard once a week. God bless her. She's amazing. She's dope as hell. She shows up for that school community. But then by showing up, she also looks at us. So I always make sure that we put our helmets on.
Oh, my gosh. You put your helmet on because you don't want the principal to notice.
Exactly. It's all about compliance. And then I go home and I throw it off and I go to work.
Oh my. Okay, we'll talk about this later.
But it's such a great ride, and I love it, and it's so freeing. And if I'm hoping that for you listeners, you have your own ways. I'm sure a lot of us do.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking, like, if you can't embed it as your commute, and you don't work out, there's so many other ways to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it could be anything from doing jumping jacks, or what my 4-year-old calls jump jacks.
Jump jacks.
Jump jacks. Just a really quick, not necessarily a workout if you're not really down with those, but like just a burst of physicality, dancing to a song. There's just so many ways to do it. And I think that's a great way to, something to do when you're feeling down, or you're in a very charged headspace, or feeling reactive.
It jars you out of that space where you're ruminating on the past, or you're anxious about the future, right? Like it jars you out of it. It
gets you out of your head and into your body, which is a good move. I want to move on to the last part, but I think this is the most dense, robust part of how we engage in mindfulness. And I think with this comes putting up boundaries, protecting yourself, surrounding yourself with boundaries within yourself and also with others.
Yeah.
Also helpful to think about with the holidays coming up.
So many boundaries.
So many boundaries, so many people, different situations to be in. And, if you're going to have like the complicated so-and-so in your family showing up, or so-and-so with their partner whom you don't like, or so-and-so who's going to get drunk, or so-and-so who is going to hit you up for money, or who knows, any number of things. I'm just saying this off the dome. But we all have our families and friends, and with that comes a lot of love and a lot of complications.
Yeah.
So I wanted to dive into one of the things that, so there are a couple of mental practices, mindful habits that I've been exercising and flexing. Yeah.
It's a flex. Okay.
It's a flex. And one of them is from Mel Robbins. I don't know if you all follow her. I love her. She had, I think, a long career in journalism, broadcast journalism. She's now a famous podcaster herself. I love her show. She talks about this theory called let them. And it's...
Did you say let them?
Let them.
Okay.
And it's that simple. I'm not saying it's simply done, but that is the practice. So, for example, really, it's for any time you feel hurt. It could be your friends went out and went to brunch. They didn't invite you, right? Or family members decided something without you. Or your husband decided to do this thing and didn't talk to you about it. Or went against your wishes, right? Any number of things. And not always, but sometimes you let them. And the way that she describes it is because if you let them, then you are allowing them to maybe be more of their authentic self or make their decisions, which will then help you inform your own in making the best decision for yourself in response to that. If you choose to respond.
Yeah. It helps you not to be, again, reactive, right? You gotta let them. I like that it's 2 words. It's a good catchphrase.
And I've thought about that one because, of course, I felt hurt. And I think in the past, my mind would get stuck in, it was kind of like a slippery slope. It would be like, I wonder why they did that. And that feels shitty. And this is why it feels shitty. And then that reminds me of something else. Remember that time they did this? And then maybe I shouldn't have responded that. And it becomes this black hole that I'm spiraling into. Luckily I cannot think of anything too recent, but these days, or I know at least in the past year, when I felt those pricks of hurt, oftentimes like feeling left out of something, I think, okay, it's all good.
Yeah.
It will be fine. Because it's happened. And I can either expend energy thinking about it, ruminating it, speculating as to why, or I can just think, oh, I didn't go to that thing.
Exactly.
The end. And it's okay.
Man, as I hear you say this, I'm like, I don't know if I could have done that before I turned 40.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a hard one, but it's such a freeing one.
Yeah.
Let them.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not like if you ruminate about it, you could have changed the past.
Yeah.
It's really freeing.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is. It's allowing yourself to take a mental break.
Yeah.
Because it's happened. So
what are you going to do?
Exactly. Move on with your life.
And I like the idea that it gives you a space to think about what you're going to do. Like instead of just react to what they did to you.
Right.
It gives you space to think about what you want.
Right.
Right? Let them. Okay.
And I think the other thing I want to share right now is kind of adjacent to it. Is I don't recall, I'm sure a lot of people have said this, wise people. So I can't credit anyone with this, but it's as simple as when I am thinking about or worrying about what that thing I said or the thing that I did or the way that person responded to me, what I can come to now is this other thing I think of, which is what other people think about me is none of my business.
So clever.
And that feels very freeing too.
Yeah.
For example, I had a moment where I went to a party and I got introduced to someone and he said to me, "Oh, I know who you are."
In a certain tone?
It wasn't a really pointed tone, but he said something no, but I felt the weight of the words.
Yeah.
And he said, "I know who you are because my wife's told me a lot about you." And I wanted to say, right, like I think the compulsion is to say, well, I hope good things, right? That's kind of like, right? The cliche. And I that made me actually worry for a moment. And then I thought, it's none of my damn business what she said to him. That's her husband.
That's right.
It's actually none of my damn business what she thinks of me.
Yeah.
Because if I consider her to be a friend, then I should just be confident in our relationship and friendship.
Yeah.
And what I don't know, I don't need to know.
That's one of the 8 C's, confident.
Yes. Yes. The confidence and assuredness of who I am as a person.
Exactly.
And the way my perception of a relationship should stand as it is, unless they tell me it's different.
Right.
And then we can actually just engage in a conversation about that, an open discussion. But ruminating, speculating, why do I need to do any of that?
No. It's just stressful.
Yeah. And I want to always come down to bottom line, I'm enough.
I like that.
I'm enough. And that is, but the thing with that is that's not spontaneous. That doesn't just happen. It's a practice. It is a cultivated mindset. Because a lot of things in this world and society, of course, tell us the opposite or make us feel the opposite. So I need to tell myself I am enough.
Not to bring everything back to Inside Out 2 constantly. Why did I learn so much from that children's film?
I know, it's your Bible.
But it's one of the things that anxiety teaches this little girl is that if you let anxiety take over, like your body, your mind, then the belief that arises is that I am not enough.
Right.
And I like started tearing up thinking about it. It's like so true.
Yeah.
Well, why do you not trust yourself that you can handle the next situation?
Right.
And so often we don't.
Right.
But to acknowledge that we can trust ourselves is really sort of shocking.
I have a really dumb, superficial example for that. But sometimes when I feel like it takes us hours to get out of the house, oh my God, especially when you have little ones and the dumb stuff that you have to pack, I'm like, what am I? Am I going on a hiking trip? Like,
I know.
Am I getting on an airplane right now? Like, why do I have so much crap?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's this constant anticipation of needs or mitigation of what if we have a potty accident or like any number of things. And my husband, rightfully so, he's like, guess what? We have money. We can buy diapers.
Yeah.
Guess what? We can, we'll figure it out. And blessed that we have those resources, but also like, let's not catastrophize and I don't want to mire myself in a headspace where I have to anticipate every possible misstep or unfortunate circumstance. It's like, you know what? Sometimes I want to walk out of the house with my phone wallet and close the door.
Yeah.
Maybe not even be with my children. But if I am with them, let's just figure it out. We'll figure it out.
I remember when I was a kid, I was so carefree.
Yeah.
I remember moments where I felt very carefree to the point where I lost things. Yeah. And that is like the worst thing you could ever do to a Korean adult. That you lose something.
Yeah, I know.
And as your dad says, you are la 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 la.
Which we sometimes are.
I totally remember my grandmother chewing me out. God rest her soul, R.I.P. Yeah. And I was close to her, but not our grandmother, but my other one, chewing me out for losing something.
Right.
And it's just that feeling of, oh, who cares?
Yeah.
But that starts the narrative. So begins the inner narrative.
Right.
The inner dialogue.
Right.
One thing that I like, this is like it's not necessarily a daily mental decision. It was a big mental decision that happened very recently. And since I made that mental decision, my life has been different. And I'm really excited about it. And I feel a sense of grief that I lived so much of my life without having made this decision.
Talk about it.
Here it is. I was in a situation, and I can't share too many details about it, but I was in a situation where I felt like I had to prove myself to someone, like what I was saying was true. I felt like I had to explain like the situation that had happened, and I needed that person's validation. In fact, I feel like I've been in this situation several times over the last year, including at work, where like something happened at work with a student, and I felt like it could have been escalated to something, and yet certain powers that be didn't believe me, or they didn't think it was as important enough to report it in a certain way, or whatever. And then you feel like, oh God, I have to prove myself. I have to tell them. I have to present the evidence.
Yep.
Without.
I have to document everything.
I have to document. It's such a CPS.
Oh God.
It's curse. I have to document everything. I have to present the evidence in the most objective way possible. I have to word everything perfectly so that they understand. I have to be as clear as possible.
It's all the things.
It's all the things for that person to acknowledge what I'm saying. God damn it.
Yeah. And it may not even amount to anything.
No. And so I'm in this situation. It's about a month ago, right? Maybe 6 weeks ago. And halfway through my, like, kind of presenting my evidence and trying to get this person to validate what I'm saying as true, I thought to myself, what am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I trying to No, I know I have the confidence to understand that this is something that has happened, and I don't need his validation, right? I don't need it because I know that it has happened. So what am I doing here trying to convince this person who may not, it's like he may not even be not validating me.
Right.
He's just not giving it to me the way I wanted it at the moment. What am I doing? And I completely switched my mindset at that moment. And I thought to myself, I'm interviewing you, bro. I'm interviewing you.
I love it.
And I literally thought that. And then I realized when I switched that mindset, I'm telling him stuff, but also I'm watching him to see what kind of person that he is. How is he reacting to me? How is he taking in my information? Does my information make him nervous? Right. And then it brings me to curiosity, right? And that's another one of the 8 C's. So I'm confident in myself. I'm curious. It just changed my entire perspective. And then I thought, why have I been a people pleaser my entire life? Like scared, hypervigilant, wanting to avoid conflict and trying to, make the peace so that, no. I've sat in rooms where like, I work for a nonprofit where like I had to sit at a dinner table with billionaires. you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I just kept thinking to myself, I have nothing to prove to them. I have nothing to prove to them. That's different from, I'm interviewing you, bro. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it's like, instead of saying I have nothing to prove to them, which is still kind of like me trying to limit myself or stop myself.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound very convincing.
No, it's not. But I'm interviewing you, bro. That is the title of my next book. I'm sorry, did I say next? I meant first.
You've authored many in your head.
In my head. But that's what I want to do from now on. And since 6 weeks ago, I have been doing it. Even at work, I will sit in meetings with the district officials of Chicago Public Schools who have come to our school to blah, blah, blah. And as I ask questions or as I respond to something they say, I'm watching them.
Right.
Because I want to know what kind of person you are and what you're bringing to my school. As opposed to, I swear our school is great. We're doing a good job. Believe me. Here's all the evidence. No, right. I'm not giving you any evidence. I'm sure my principal's like, can you give them some though? But you know what I mean? Sure, I'll give you the evidence, but now I'm watching you.
Right.
Because I want to see what you're bringing to the table as well, right? And so it's just changed my entire outlook on how I talk to people, think about people. And it's not like I'm judging you. It's, no, I'm interviewing you.
Right.
I really want to see what kind of person you are and what you're going to teach me or show me about, the matter at hand. And so it's been really freeing. It's kind of a wonderful mental shift that I've made and that I'm hoping to encourage anybody else to make. Hopefully you're younger than I am.
Well, and I think this is like a life's work and journey, right? I mean, there are a lot of times where I felt defensive over something.
Yes.
And you know when you feel defensive or guarded.
Yes.
But I responded with that same, whatever energy they gave me, I mirrored it.
Right.
And I met them exactly where they were, as if I were in the hot seat. And later, I get very annoyed at myself.
Right.
For even being defensive.
Right.
And I think as an adult, that happens too. It can happen at work. It can happen in your partnership, even with your kids, Yeah. And I now, when I'm starting to feel defensive, I actually slow down and pause. The curiosity you were talking about, right? So when I notice myself getting defensive, I have to shift my thinking, pause, shift my thinking, and think about, am I in the hot seat?
Yeah.
Because someone might be treating me that way, but does it actually mean that I'm in the hot seat?
Right.
Am I on the hook for anything?
Yeah.
No. And even if someone treats me that way, I don't have to be complicit with that.
No, I don't.
I don't have to respond that way.
No.
And so that's really helped me. Now I know.
And why are you asking? Why are you putting me in the hot seat? That's showing me something about you and how you're reacting,
right?
Versus who I am and what I've done,
right?
Yeah. Because
is it someone catastrophizing something? Are they just having a terrible, shitty day? Are they? I mean, any number of things, and not that it's my job to analyze that, but it can be helpful to understand that. So I can regulate how I'm feeling and thinking and how I respond.
Right.
I think the last thing I want to talk about as far as making intentional decisions or mental decisions is worry, stress, and grief, because all those things are so real. And in this chapter of my life, like I was saying, it's what I went through before has really put in perspective to me, has placed in perspective for me. I do not need to worry until I really need to worry. And since I have those lived experiences, I know what that means for me and how true that rings for me. And so now I'm allowing myself to really engage with my life and be hopeful and joyful without worrying when that's going to end. And and to get really specific, even last year, after my mom passed, I constantly worried about when my dad was going to pass. My dad is literally 91, and he still drives, and it's terrifying. And I want someone to revoke his license. But at the same time, I want him to have the basic human right of movement. And I still want him to be able to take care of himself, right? Because I ain't got that time right now. Mm-hmm. So it's a mixed bag, right? But my parents, I've mentioned this before, but my parents adopted me, much later in their years, hence his age. And he's doing really well. But I really had to put that in perspective again because my dad is not dying and is alive. And having gone through some very witnessing and giving a lot of taking care of my mom and doing caregiving for my mom as she did slowly die for many years from Alzheimer's and dementia. Mm-hmm. I know the difference. And, but the worry of my dad and him getting sick any day or ending up in the emergency room or wondering how he did today, I had to put that down. And something that I've been working on, and I actually worked on this too with my mom, is you have to put the worry down at some point. It's not that you're letting it go, because sometimes that feels impossible, right? Mm-hmm. Especially if you are doing caregiving, or someone who's really suffering, and or you might be taking care of that person. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to let go of that because it is a monthly, weekly, daily, minute by minute real existence for you. Mm-hmm. But it's so important to put it down and just try to engage in other aspects of your life as much as you can. Fully be present to those other things. Mm-hmm. And something my therapist also recommended is to have a visual metaphor for putting it down. So literally that could be anything from a bundle of sticks to a fire that you might be holding, which is actually one of the visuals in Inside Out.
Oh, God.
It all comes back to that movie.
I know.
But thinking about it, I mean, whatever works for you, letting yourself breathe, not feeling guilty if you have a good time out, going out or, spending some quality time with other people in your life, enjoying those things, knowing that you deserve and need those things to strike that balance in your own life, to fill your own cup, to attend to other people in your life better, and to really attend to yourself better.
Mm-hmm. To hit the 8 C's.
Mm-hmm, right.
It's interesting you talk about putting down. I like that metaphor. Instead of letting go, because I can't let go. It's like that song, Let It Go. I'm like, I cannot let it go.
I know, and that's why I think that song so universally resonated with everyone.
Yeah.
It's not just the musicality. It is the content.
We got to let it go. But when you can't let it go, can you at least put it down? Mm-hmm. Right? And that's such a... I really appreciate that metaphor because it's realistic. You can put it down while you make yourself better or whatever it is that you're doing. One of the things that I think it makes something that I really needed to learn over the last several years is putting down my own worries, yes, but also putting down other people's worries, putting down other people's burdens. My brother is a burden bearer. His name literally means the bearer of burdens or the burden bearer.
Bearer. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. He bears burdens.
Yes.
He bears the burdens of others. And it's a prophetic name, right? It's an Old Testament prophetic name. But I think that we, just in our family, it's all about bearing the burdens of others. There's something about that created a core belief in us, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, it took my therapist like a year to talk to me about this because I couldn't understand what she was saying. Because I kept saying, if you empathize with somebody, right? If you feel for someone, if you want to give compassion to someone, put your money where your mouth is. Mm-hmm. Walk the walk. Don't talk the talk. Mm-hmm. Don't just sit there and offer empty words, right? Go and help them. Do something, right? And she said, I don't disagree with you, Praise. Those are things that you could do. But the difference between doing something like that for someone and what you do, what Praise does, is that what I do is a compulsion.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I'm trying to help someone or solve their problem or try to get them to go somewhere, it's not a decision I'm making out of compassion. It is a compulsion that I have. And that's different. And I was like, I don't have that compulsion. I'm just being a good person, you know? And there's a lot of excuses that I made. But I think that when you are somebody who has trained your brain to be hypervigilant of other people's needs to keep yourself safe, aka people pleaser. It's not like I'm trying to please other people just to please them. I'm pleasing them to keep myself safe, right? So it's that hypervigilance. When you've trained yourself to become that way, you carry their burdens. Like you don't know how to hold the space to empathize for somebody, to be present for them, to feel for them, and then trust them that they will carry their own burdens. Now I can then make a decision to offer my help or to carry it, you know, like to do something for them or to help them in some way, but that I don't have to carry their burden for them. Right? I can walk alongside them. I can help carry it alongside them, but I am not carrying it for you. In fact, that's disrespectful. And so it was a mental decision that it took a long time for me to get there, but I was like, I can hold the space and the connectedness between me and you to offer you compassion, empathy, and hold that space for you while not trying to solve your problem.
Right.
Yeah. And that, you know, it's the putting down metaphor works there. Mm-hmm. I put down my need to carry your burden for you so that I can have free hands, like to give you a hug or to be there or whatever, you know, but I like that idea to put it down and to then to be free of it. To be free to even help you. Right. Because then you're not just compelled to help. Like it's not a compulsion.
Right. And when you leave that person, leave it there.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to do, especially if you teach and work with young people.
Yeah.
Especially those who have been traumatized in one way or another. It's really hard not to bring those worries home with you.
Right.
And of course, like for our other family members and friends.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, that's why you have to be careful of not having secondary trauma or caregiver trauma.
That's right.
It's really hard. And that, again, is a practice of having boundaries that are healthy and needed and not selfish. It's the release of, I will be fully present with you when I'm with you. And when I leave you, I'm leaving you.
Yeah.
Like I'm leaving the grief and whatever else is coming with that. But I can pick that up again when I'm with you.
Well, friends, that's all we got.
And it's a lot.
We want to say that in this season of gratitude, we really appreciate you all. Those who have stuck with us and any new listeners, we appreciate you. We hope that you have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
And that it's just a time of rest, whether you celebrate it or not, whomever you might be with, however that looks in your life. We hope that you do feel gratitude for yourself and the lives that you have built, and that you can fill your cups up.
But not your period cups.
Yeah, I'm speaking like cup of wine or the figurative cup of yourself.
Yeah, figurative cup of yourself.
Yes. Whatever that looks like. And oh, what a time to be alive. And that you give yourself the best present of all, being present to your own life.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Take good care. Until next time.
Thanks to Mia, our producer extraordinaire.
And to Clark for this awesome music we got for free, 99.
You can find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever.
You can also email us at damnedifyoudopodcast@gmail.com. It's a mouthful, but you're worth it.